Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Oftentimes we run across difficult people. People are just very hard to get along with, people who cause friction in our lives very easily. And it's oftentimes hard to know how to respond. And sometimes we can become very distraught, especially if it's an individual that we have to deal with day in and day out. Well, David was not immune to this, and he himself had to deal with a very difficult person, namely Shimei, who was cursing David as he and his people were traveling away from Jerusalem. And this man was throwing stones at him. Verse 6 of 2 Samuel 16 tells us he was cursing him. He says, get out, you man of bloodshed and worthless fellow. The Lord has returned upon you all the bloodshed of the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned. And the Lord has given the kingdom into the hand of your son Absalom. And behold, you are taken in your own evil, for you are a man of bloodshed. Not very kind words by Shimei, and definitely not very kind actions as he's casting stones at David. And again, this becomes a very difficult person to deal with. And of course, Abishai wanted to basically kill the guy. He says, let me go over and cut off his head. He was so annoyed by this man and so offended by the comments of this man that he actually wanted to cut off his head. But David responds in a very wise way, and in a way that perhaps we can model whenever we come across people who are just difficult to get along with. And one of the things that he recognizes is the fact that this Shimei was perhaps sent by God himself to go to David and to curse him in this way. David was always very cognizant of his own shortcomings, his own sins, and he's thinking perhaps that maybe God has sent this person to curse me. This is what David says. He says, what do I have to do with you, O sons of Zeruiah? If he curses, and if the Lord has told him, curse David, then who shall say, why have you done so? Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, behold, my son who came out from me seeks my life. How much more now this Benjamite? Let him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him. So he saw this as ultimately coming from the Lord. And that's how he processed this whole situation. And perhaps we can respond that way as well. When we have to deal with difficult people, we too can at least consider the possibility that maybe God is bringing that person into our lives for a specific reason. It may not be for the same reason that Shimei was sent to David. It might be some other reason, but the Lord might be sending that person in our lives for a specific reason. Maybe to give us an opportunity to demonstrate grace and love to people who don't deserve it, or maybe to strengthen our own character and to help us grow in our own spiritual walk. It could be a lot of different reasons, but if we look at the situation in such a way where we say, you know what, even if God didn't personally send this person, he's at least allowing this person to be in my life, and maybe that's for a specific purpose. And so that's one way we can respond. And then secondly, he says in verse 12, perhaps the Lord will look on my affliction and return good to me instead of his cursing this day. So David said, you know what? Maybe if I remain under this affliction, if I continue on suffering under the cursing of this man, maybe God will be moved to compassion, and that God will provide me good and look on and return good to me in this particular situation. And maybe that would be something we could consider as well, to say, you know what, I don't particularly like having to deal with this individual, but if I can respond the proper way, if I can do it with patience and love and grace, and I continue under this affliction, under this trial, perhaps it will move the Lord to compassion. The Lord will step in and deal with the situation, and perhaps even bring a blessing out of the situation. So if ever we find ourselves dealing with difficult people, which you don't have to live in the world too long before at some point you'll have to deal with someone who's being difficult, whether for a short period of time or for a long period of time. If we can just take these two principles, I think we'll be well on our way to being able to deal with such persons. One, recognizing that this situation is either directly given to us by the Lord or at least allowed by the Lord. And then secondly, that if we will but continue under the suffering and patience and long suffering, and if we will respond in love and kindness and grace, it can move the Lord to step in for us and to work out the situation for good and even to bring a blessing out of it. Again, if we can remember those two things, it will help us tremendously in dealing with difficult people. So here's some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.